Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have a 2028 election prediction that I never in a million years would have ever envisioned myself doing, but in a video I just did, I went over a 2028 Democratic primary poll, and in that poll, TV host Stephen A. Smith is actually mentioned as a potential 2028 Democratic primary candidate, and he does have a respectable 2% in the poll. So I thought it'd be fun to do a hypothetical 2028 presidential election prediction between Vice President J.D. Vance and Democrat nominee, apparently, Stephen A. Smith. So things start off with Stephen A. Smith at around 212 electoral votes, J.D. Vance at around 219. And I'm going to go through the toss-up states I usually would go through, and I may even be making some last-minute changes to some of these likely states, so make sure you stay tuned for that. First things first, we're going to take a look at the 2024 presidential election. We're going to start with the state of Nevada, which voted for Donald Trump by 4 points over Kamala Harris. And I mean, to be totally honest here, I think J.D. Vance is winning Nevada probably by over 5% against Stephen A. Smith. I don't think I know Donald Trump was not a politician in 2016 when he ran. He was an outsider, and that ultimately played to his advantage. I think Stephen A. Smith being the Democratic nominee is a totally different ballgame. He may be able to energize some voters, especially younger voters. I'm not sure he's going to do much more beyond that, so much so that I think Vance wins Nevada by over 5 points. The state of Arizona voted for Donald Trump by 5 points exactly. That would also be a likely Republican state, and I think Vance versus Smith, I think Arizona has to be a likely Republican state. It won't be safe because that would be exceeding 15%. I don't think that would happen, but I do think at very least Arizona would be a likely Republican state. On to the state of Georgia and its 16 electoral votes. Georgia voted for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris by about 2%, and this is something where I think obviously J.D. Vance would definitely get a lot of help with going up against Stephen A. Smith here. I'm not sure Georgia, as crazy as this sounds, I think Georgia still stays under 5%, just given the way Georgia is now, where it's such a divided state at the presidential level. I'm skeptical to put it at 5 points or more over in Georgia. So I do give J.D. Vance the state of Georgia, but I can't break 5%. The state of North Carolina and its 16 electoral votes, this state voted for Donald Trump by 3 points over Kamala Harris in 2024, 51-48. In Vance versus Stephen A. Smith, I do think it would break 5%, and J.D. Vance would be able to win North Carolina by over 5, putting it as a likely Republican state. So right now, Vance is at 268, Stephen A. Smith is at 212, and you can kind of see where I think this is going from here. We go first to the state of Pennsylvania, which voted for Donald Trump 50.4% to 48.7%. This was a lean Republican win, and I think J.D. Vance would probably win Pennsylvania maybe by 5 points, maybe a little under. It's close. I think it would probably be just at 5% or so. So I think Pennsylvania would go for J.D. Vance as likely Republican. The state of Michigan voted 49.7 for Donald Trump, 48.3 for Kamala Harris, a 1.4% win in 2024. I think the state of Michigan would actually stay under 5%, still voting for J.D. Vance, because I don't think J.D. Vance is going to do as strongly as Donald Trump did in 2024. But against Stephen A. Smith, I kind of think all logic kind of flies out the window on that one, and I think J.D. Vance would probably do just as well, if not better, in the state of Michigan. Looking at the state of Wisconsin, I went Michigan. If I said Minnesota, I meant Michigan. I'll be getting to Minnesota in 1 second. Wisconsin voted by 0.9% for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris in 2024. Vance versus Stephen A. Smith, I think Wisconsin stays under 5%, but does go for J.D. Vance. This puts Vance at 312 electoral votes. Stephen A. Smith is at 212. Now things are getting very interesting. We have the states of Minnesota and New Hampshire. New Hampshire voting for Kamala Harris 51% to 48%. And this is one of the first times that I've done this. I'm giving New Hampshire to J.D. Vance by over 1% of the vote. I think J.D. Vance could win the state of New Hampshire if Stephen A. Smith is the Democratic nominee. This is nothing against Stephen A. Smith personally, like as a person. I think he's very entertaining. I think he has some very thoughtful and good points now and again, but him being at the top of the Democratic ticket would be such a confusing situation. I cannot think he would be seen as an actual serious candidate. I think there's less than a 1% chance he's the actual Democratic nominee in 2028, but I cannot see him doing well against J.D. Vance at all in a presidential election. And I think New Hampshire goes over 1, under 5 in terms of margin of victory for the state of New Hampshire in 2028. The state of Minnesota, this state voted for Kamala Harris 51-47 over Donald Trump. Close, 4 points. Very, very close. And I am going to give this state actually to J.D. Vance in this scenario. Not by a huge number. I think it actually still would be under 1%, but I would give the state of Minnesota to J.D. Vance against Stephen A. Smith. So that would put Vance at 326, Stephen A. Smith at 212. And I'm not sure if I'm going to shift the states, but I do have some very close calls to make in some of these likely Democratic states. For one thing, I think Nebraska's 2nd district in this scenario may actually narrowly flip to J.D. Vance. It was a win for Kamala Harris of about 5 points, and I kind of think 5 points would be the draw for a trend between 2024 to 2028 in Stephen A. Smith versus J.D. Vance. I do think this would narrowly go red. Now we have the state of New Mexico, which voted 6 points for Harris over Trump. I think this one does barely stay blue, but under 1% of the vote for Stephen A. Smith versus J.D. Vance. The state of Virginia and its 13 electoral votes, I think is pretty similar, 52-46. I think Vance would narrowly fall just short in Virginia, becoming one of the closest Republicans to win this state in a very long time. And lastly, the state of New Jersey, a state that also is a 6-point win for Harris in 2024 against Donald Trump. I think the state of New Jersey would narrowly go to Stephen A. Smith very, very briefly. I'm trying my absolute best to take this prediction seriously and actually tell you what I think would happen in this election scenario, but I cannot imagine a world where Stephen A. Smith is the Democratic nominee and J.D. Vance goes up against him and does not win this election in a total blowout. Then again, though, maybe this is what some people were saying about Donald Trump back in 2016, so you never know. But I think this one might be even a little bit more far-fetched than that. And again, I'm not just making this up out of thin air. The McLaughlin Associates poll did have Stephen A. Smith listed, and he did receive 2% in this poll. So he's actually ahead of Deval Patrick, who did run for president in 2020, Phil Murphy, governor of the state of New Jersey, Beto O'Rourke, former candidate for Senate, and J.B. Pritzker, governor of the state of Illinois. Stephen A. Smith does have more support than all of them in this poll. So this is what my prediction would be for the 2028 presidential election if it was J.D. Vance, the Republican vice president, versus Stephen A. Smith, the TV show host, I believe the undisputed host. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about this one, other than I have a lot of fun making it. If it did end up being Stephen A. Smith versus J.D. Vance in 2028, I am at a complete loss for words, and I clearly know way less about elections than I thought I did. And this would just be a very fun scenario for, I think, everyone involved to see how it goes. But that being said, I'm very interested to hear what you have to think. Make sure to give the video a like, leave a comment below, tell me what you think about this election prediction. If there's even less, or if there's even more than 1% chance of something like this happening, and how this election would go. Honestly, if you want to leave your thoughts about Stephen A. Smith just on a personal level, some of the things he said, I know he's gone on to Sean Hannity's show on Fox News for a while. He was just on Bill Maher's show as well, making some actually pretty decent points about politics and communicating with people. But as it comes to a Democratic candidate, I personally can't see it. But I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. Maybe you have a different opinion than I am, and I'm certainly open to hearing it. Again, remember to like the video, leave a comment below. Remember to hit subscribe to my channel so you always get notified when I post a new video, because I post a video every single day, at least one per day. So I hope you'll check those videos out and keep coming back. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button. And make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really like the video. And remember to stay tuned, because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day. So I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.